Scientists played death metal to parrots. The parrots hated it. Then they played classical music. The parrots loved it. Then they played silence. And the parrots, completely unprompted, started composing their own music in response. Not mimicking. Not repeating. Creating original melodies. From scratch. Because they wanted to. We have been asking the wrong question for decades. The question was never whether birds enjoy music. The question is whether birds have been making music for millions of years while we stood there, thinking we invented it. Every morning before you wake up there is a concert happening outside your window. Not random noise. Not instinct on autopilot. A structured, deliberate, emotionally driven musical performance by creatures who have been perfecting their craft for longer than our entire species has existed. Birds do not just enjoy music. In almost every way that actually matters, birds are better at it than we are. Today we are going to find out what happens when you play music to birds, what the science says about whether they feel it emotionally, which genres they prefer and which ones stress them out, and why the greatest composers in history may have been listening to the wrong species for inspiration all along. This is Do Birds Actually Enjoy Music? And by the end of this video you will never hear birdsong the same way again. Let us start with the experiment that launched 1,000 headlines. In 2012, researchers at the University of Tennessee decided to test whether parrots had genuine musical preferences, not just behavioral responses to sound but actual aesthetic opinions about different types of music. They exposed African gray parrots and Amazon parrots to 3 genres: classical music, pop music, and heavy metal. The results were immediate, dramatic, and completely unambiguous. The parrots loved classical music. They moved toward the speakers. They bobbed their heads rhythmically. They vocalized along with the melody. Their body language was open, relaxed, and engaged, the behavioral signature of an animal experiencing something pleasurable. Then came the heavy metal. The parrots moved away from the speakers. Their feathers flattened against their bodies, a stress response. Their vocalizations became agitated and repetitive. Several birds turned their backs on the speakers entirely. One African gray reportedly screamed until the music was turned off and then went completely silent for 20 minutes afterward, sitting with its back to the room like it needed a moment to recover from what it had just experienced. The researchers noted that the parrots did not just have preferences. They had strong preferences, opinions, aesthetic judgments about music that were consistent, repeatable, and expressed with what can only be described as personality. But here is the part the headlines missed. When the researchers played silence after the music sessions, when they removed all external sound entirely, several parrots began spontaneously vocalizing in structured patterns that did not match any sounds in their environment. New melodies, original sequences, organized rhythmic patterns produced for no practical purpose, no mate to attract, no territory to defend, no alarm to signal. They were making music for the sake of making music. In the silence left by human music, the birds started creating their own. That finding sat in the footnotes of the study and almost nobody noticed it. We are going to talk about why that matters enormously in a moment. The question of whether birds enjoy music requires us to ask a harder question first. Do birds feel music? Not just hear it, feel it. Does music produce genuine emotional states in birds the way it does in humans? Because enjoying something requires experiencing it in a way that has emotional content. Pleasure is an emotion. Preference requires the capacity to feel something different when you encounter different things. The answer, increasingly supported by neurological and behavioral research, is yes. Birds feel music. And The mechanism through which they feel it is remarkably similar to the mechanism through which humans feel it. When humans listen to music they enjoy, the brain releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, motivation, and reward. This happens specifically at moments of musical anticipation and resolution, the build before the chorus, the landing of a chord, the moment a melody resolves. Music essentially hijacks the brain's reward system. And birds have the same reward system. The same dopamine pathways. The same neurological architecture that makes music feel like something rather than just sound. Research measuring behavioral correlates of emotional response in birds exposed to music, body posture, vocalization patterns, movement toward or away from sound sources, changes in heart rate, consistently show patterns that parallel human emotional responses. Fast, irregular, loud music produces stress indicators. Slow, harmonic, melodically rich music produces relaxation and engagement indicators. The birds are not just processing sound. They are responding to it emotionally. They are feeling it. Zebra finches, small Australian songbirds that have become the laboratory equivalent of white mice for birdsong research, have provided some of the most compelling evidence for this. Studies measuring dopamine activity in zebra finch brains while they listen to their own species' songs found elevated reward pathway activation that dropped significantly when the songs were played in scrambled, arrhythmic versions. The birds were not just responding to the presence of sound. They were responding to the musical structure of the sound. The rhythm. The melody. The pattern. Disrupting the pattern disrupted the reward response. The birds needed the music to be music, organized, structured, melodically coherent, in order to feel it. Exactly the way humans do. Now here's the part that should genuinely change how you think about the history of music. Birds did not develop musical ability by accident. They did not evolve song as a side effect of some other capability. Song, structured, learned, culturally transmitted, emotionally expressive vocal music, evolved in birds approximately 65 million years ago. 65 million years before the first human being drew breath. Before our ancestors were anything more than small frightened mammals hiding in trees from the things that ruled the earth. Birds were already making music. And they were doing it with a sophistication that took musicologists centuries to fully appreciate. Hermit thrush songs, studied and analyzed by researchers at Cornell University, follow the same mathematical principles of harmony and scale structure that underpin Western musical theory. Not approximately, precisely. The thrush's songs use frequency ratios that correspond to the harmonic series. The same ratios that Pythagoras identified as the foundation of musical harmony in the 6th century BC and that every music theory course in the world still teaches today. The thrush did not learn this from humans. The thrush evolved it independently 65 million years ago. Either the harmonic series is the natural mathematical structure of what sound can be, and both humans and birds independently discovered it, or birds taught it to us through the songs we listened to for millennia before we ever wrote a note down. Whales sing in rhyme. Gibbons duet with their partners in counterpoint that follows the rules of Western musical counterpoint precisely. Lyrebirds improvise new compositions in real time, incorporating environmental sounds into musical structures of extraordinary complexity. A lyrebird in an Australian rainforest recorded in 2021 had incorporated the sound of a camera shutter, a car alarm, and a chainsaw into a coherent musical improvisation that musicologists described as genuinely creative rather than purely imitative. These are not animals accidentally making sounds that happen to resemble music. These are animals with musical intelligence, the capacity to organize sound into meaningful, emotionally expressive, aesthetically coherent structures. that predates human musical intelligence by tens of millions of years. We did not give music to the world. The birds were here first. And they have been refining it ever since. So do birds enjoy music? Yes. Completely and definitively yes. They have preferences between genres. They have emotional responses to musical structure. They produce dopamine when they hear music they love. They compose original music when the environment goes silent. They have been developing musical culture for 65 million years. And the mathematical principles underlying their music are identical to the principles underlying ours. But the more important answer is this. Every morning when you hear birds singing outside your window, that is not background noise. That is not decoration. That is music. Created by musicians. Performed for an audience that includes other musicians who will critique it, learn from it, respond to it, and incorporate it into their own compositions. You are not overhearing nature. You are sitting at the edge of the oldest concert in the world. The next time a bird sings near you, stop. Actually stop. Put the phone down. Close your eyes. And listen the way you would listen to music. Because that is exactly what it is. And the performer has been practicing for longer than you can imagine. If this video made you hear the world differently, share it with one person who needs to hear it too. Subscribe and hit the bell because next week we are asking whether modern birds could evolve to be as smart as humans, and the answer involves 50 million years, some dangerously ambitious crows, and one fact about bird brain evolution that will completely destroy everything you thought you knew about intelligence. You do not want to miss that one. See you next week.